Soto and Chad here, and we've been doing some pretty bad horror movies on our Rotten Taste podcast this month for Halloween. So we're going to get away from that here, and we wanted to talk about what is the scariest movie that we've ever seen. And not just us, we asked our friends this question too. But let's start with you, Soto. What's the scariest movie that you've ever seen?
Well, I have to say the scariest movie I've ever seen is probably, as far as what actually terrifies me, and not a lot of movies do, but the movie Fire in the Sky, about the guy who gets abducted by aliens. I don't know why, but that whole scene where he's getting the aliens are trying to lock him down, he's screaming and everything like that, and he's like paralyzed, and they're like putting syringes in his eyeballs and everything like that. I mean, just the whole entire look, the vibe. Everything was one of the most terrible things I've ever seen. It gave me nightmares for a long time. And yeah, still kind of the reason why I don't drive in the woods at night or drive up in the New Hampshire mountains because I ain't trying about to get abducted by no aliens.
It's tough for me to say what's the scariest movie that I've ever seen. I mean, as a kid, I got scared by a lot of things, but as an adult, it's the psychological stuff that gets to me the most. And because of that, I would have to say the scariest movie I've ever seen is the Japanese movie Audition. Basically, this guy's wife has passed away. He's just raising his son on his own. He wants to get back in the dating world, and his friend, who's a producer, sets up auditions, and he tells him, "Hey, whichever girl you like, we'll set you up on blind dates." And he finds this girl. She's nice, quiet, reserved, but as the movie goes on, you find out that she is not what it seems like. She is a relentless killer and does things in the most horrific ways imaginable. A lot of people who have seen this movie kind of remember basically the leg wire scene where she is basically cutting the guy's leg off with like this wire. But for me, the scene that always does it in is the puke scene. And I'm not going to go into detail because every time I even think about it, it makes me kind of gag up a little bit. But those who've seen it know that it is so fucking gross. The reason why I saw this film, mainly because I saw a quote from Rob Zombie, and he said that this is the most twisted movie that he's ever seen. So if he's saying that, this is by far up there on that scale.
Scariest movie I've ever seen, probably recently, is The Conjuring. It scared the heck out of me because at the same time it was like based on real events. And in terms of like the cinematography, there was just like a lot of dread in the shots where everything was just kind of like still and then it would pan. And I don't know, it would just kind of raise my adrenaline level. And the thing I think that got me the most was the clapping game. Because when that thing came out, uh, when the mom was like down in the basement, and then the hand just came out and just like clapped, man, that was freaky. So, but overall, everything else too was, I mean, the story was nice as well, but there was definitely, because of the real aspect to it, it's what made it scary for me.
Paranormal Activity. The first two mainly. They are creepy. All the what do you call it? Footage, found footage films are horrible. I was like really shocked at the end of it. I was like, oh my god, oh my god. And then, like I say, the second one's good, especially when she makes another appearance again. I was like, oh wow. Say they did it well the first two.
The scariest movie that I've ever seen. Wow. It's gonna be an oldie. It's Stephen King's 1989 Pet Cemetery. Possibly one of the most balls down, scariest films I've ever watched, and I watched it at a really young age, so it kind of like ingrained into me as how scary this goddamn film was. And the fact that I am now uh, nearing my 40s, this film still to this day gives me the heebie-jeebies. Not the remake's absolutely fine, but no. There is something about having shit come back alive, even more evil, or if it was nice, it comes back evil. Really freaks you out. And basically, it's about a family that moved to a small town, and their house is situated in the middle of like nowhere, and right next to an insanely busy freeway or road. And I mean, we're talking big Arctic lorries driving down at full speed down the straight road, and probably not the safest place to have your kids. But firstly, the family cat gets run over. The guy takes it to the vet. The vet says, "I can't do anything with that." And he goes to bury it in the woods and buries it in a ancient Indian ancient burial ground. And yeah, it's comes back to life. Cat's a fucking bastard. Kid then gets hit by the Arctic lorry, which is even more insane because you see everything. And yeah, it's kid comes back, and I'll probably say yeah. If I thought more about it, that kid probably nearly put me off of ever having children. But it is one of the most disturbing but brilliant pieces of writing from Stephen King. And like I say, I'm 38. It still scares me now. So yeah, that is probably my scariest movie.
This is the hardest question ever, but it's the easiest. I have little pieces of movies that are scary, but as a movie in whole, it's arachnophobia because of spiders. And they're freaking making a new one, which is ridiculous because then I'm going to die just from watching it.
Okay, so the scariest movie I saw, or at least the movie that left some lasting, I guess, PTSD, was when I was a little kid. I don't know if it was on purpose, but my mom had Alien on, and I remember vividly the living room being dark and the alien popping out of that person's chest and skittering across the, the table, and I just freaked the hell out. I lost it, banging on the door, "Mom, come back!" Because she wanted to go do something, and luckily she was like right there, and she was like, "What?" And I'm like, so that was the scariest movie I've seen.
Uh, it'd have to be Rubber for sure. The movie about a tire that rolls down the road, exploding people's heads with its mind powers. Does a tire have mind powers? It has some kind of power that explodes people's faces. And ever since then, I just have a fear of tires rolling down the road because what if I'm next? What if my face is the next to feel its wrath?
So the first movie that popped into mind was the first Paranormal Activity. Now, I know by today's standards it's probably not the scariest movie in the world, but when I first watched that and saw how they handled the unseen, because a lot of horror movies make the mistake of showing you the bad things straight away and not leaving it up to your imagination, because your imagination is so much worse than what's real normally. But that movie nailed it. And all of the effects that they had with like drawers and doors opening on their own, that was just freaky enough for me to have the willies put up. But if I was really, really honest, the scariest movie I've ever seen for in relation to when I was actually watching it, I thought I was going to cry and shit myself. The Care Bears movie. I was about 6, and a kid gets possessed by something evil in a Care Bears movie. I can't remember which one, and I'm not going to tell you which one because they're all terrible, and it's a Care Bears movie. But he had red eyes, and he went all like sinister and started doing one of those creepy, really high shoulder, shruggy laughs. And it scarred me as a little 6-year-old boy to the point where I was dreaming about this kid as if he was chasing me. My therapist was lovely.